to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Hope everybody's staying safe out there. Figured I'd do something a little bit different today. Not a lot in the New York Giants news today, but I wanted to do a video that was suggested to me by Chris Sonor, one of my best subscribers in Discord, on doing kind of a report card for the New York Giants at each position group. You know, grading the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, etc., with letters A through F. So kind of just wanted to give a quick breakdown of what I thought about the New York Giants roster right now as of today. Now, of course, it's kind of hard to evaluate some of the positions because we've got some rookies playing those spots. We don't know how they're going to play, and also we have to evaluate that we have a new coaching staff, and we have to see how they fit the scheme. But I did my best to evaluate the roster as is and give my most honest prediction at each position as to how I would grade it. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. We're going to start at the quarterback position, of course, that being Daniel Jones. I'm not going to talk about the depth because obviously we're hoping Colt McCoy doesn't play with this football team. Daniel Jones coming off a year where he had a strong rookie season. You know, we say it all the time. I think he had 24 touchdowns in just 12 starts. Needs to work on those fumbling problems. He still only has 12 starts to his name, and he's learning a new playbook. So I think all that needs to be taken into account when evaluating, where I would grade him. Is he a finished product? No. Does he have a lot to improve on? Yes. But that's something that you expect from a rookie quarterback. Now, when I'm grading between A and F, I'm grading probably C is about average. And that's probably, at this point in time, where I would have Daniel Jones. I'd have him graded out right around a C right now. I think maybe a C minus to a C in that area. But he has the possibility of taking a huge jump in year two. I talk about it all the time at the quarterback position. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. But in year two, a lot of times quarterbacks take that next big jump. Next position we're going to talk about is the running back position. And it's not just Saquon Barkley here. Of course, the New York Giants added Dion Lewis. They bring in Payne. You still have Wayne Gallman on the roster. But the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, and if I'm giving a grade of A, it's got to be top 5 in the league at that position. And to me, the New York Giants have that, regardless of who their backup running back is. Saquon Barkley is that talented. Barkley even came out a couple days ago, and said that last year he was injured while playing, and he still eclipsed 1,000 yards. Barkley, to me, is the most talented running back in the league. The fact that they improved this offensive line should only help that. But if there is a strength to this New York Giants team on either side of the football, their best player is their running back in Saquon Barkley. So at that position, I would honestly give the New York Giants an A. Maybe if you want to be stingy, you could give them an A minus or a B plus because of the depth behind Barkley. But I think they are strong at that position. Next position we're going to talk about is the wide receiver and tight end position. I kind of coupled both, being that the tight end position, especially in the New York Giants offense, and a lot of offenses in today's modern game, is treated as if it's a wide receiver. Of course, Evan Ingram may very well be the New York Giants' best option in the passing game. And I think the New York Giants' top 3 starting wide receivers are at least adequate. I think they're league average. With Darius Slayton, who I think will take a big jump in this offense this year, the experienced Golden Tate, and the often injured Sterling Shepard. It's after that where you really have to worry about it, right? With some of the undrafted free agents we've brought in, Cody Core, Corey Coleman, not the most experienced of guys, and we do have an injury history with guys like Darius Slayton and Evan Ingram. And as far as the tight end goes, outside of Evan Ingram, we do have some nice pieces there as well. I think Toyolo was a very nice acquisition. Smith played well for the Giants down the stretch. So overall, as a position group, when I combine the wide receiver and the tight end, I'm going to give them right around league average. I'll give them a grade of a C. Now, the thing you got to worry about, of course, is health. If Ingram were to go down, or if Sterling Shepard were to go down, well, that grade would drop to probably a C minus or maybe even a D plus. But going in at full strength, I would probably give this position group a C. Next up, we've got the offensive line. And the offensive line last year was a big disappointment for the New York Giants. We were hoping it would be significantly improved. They played a lot better over the last 8 games of 2018. And Nate Solder just didn't get the job done. Now, the New York Giants went out there and they spent a lot of draft capital on the offensive line. The thing is, of the 3 players they brought in, I really only see Andrew Thomas making an immediate impact. Matt Parrott, I think, will sit the bench at least for the majority of the season. Shane Lemieux is competing for that center spot, but I don't expect him to get it. He might, but he's more of a guard that's trying to transition into the center position. So that being said, I do think it's definitely an improved unit, being that the New York Giants spent one of their highest selection, number 4 overall on the offensive line, and they brought in Andrew Thomas, who I think will be a very strong offensive tackle in this year's class. In addition to that, that should help Will Hernandez next to him, and I think Nate Solder will play better. I can't play worse on the right side. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. And Zeitler is still a strong force at the right guard position. It's center where I think you really have to worry. But overall, as a group, because of the acquisition of Andrew Thomas, and I do like the depth of this offensive line, I would give them as an overall unit a grade of C. I think you will see an improved team this year at that position, and I expect them probably to be around league average as a whole as the offensive line and trending upwards. Next we're going to talk about is special teams, and this is Joe Judge's area of expertise, and it's where the New York Giants really flourished last year. Riley Dixon was one of the best punters in the league. The long snapper, of course, Diassi, we got rid of, and a lot of people said that had to do with Rose's kicking problems. They did bench him the last 2 or 3 weeks last year. We bring in Kreider, who's a Pro Bowl long snapper. We bring back Cody Core, who really stood out. We bring in Nate Ebner, who is a special team specialist for the New England Patriots. And, of course, the acquisition of Joe Judge, you would think would only help this unit. Outside of the kicking game last year, I would have thought the New York Giants were one of the best special teams units in all of football. And I think Joe Judge will only improve that, being that that's where he excels. So with that all being said, I do think the New York Giants will get a lot of hidden yardage this year with this special teams unit, and I'm actually going to give them a grade of an A. I think the special teams unit will be right around the top 5 in the league. Like I said, maybe you could go B or B+, but I think this will be one of the biggest strengths for this New York Giants roster going into next season. Now we head on over to the defense, and this is where it gets a little bit, obviously we have more question marks on the defensive side of the ball, but one area I don't have that many question marks is the defensive line. I think the New York Giants defensive line is a pretty strong unit. Leonard Williams, they bring back, played well for the Giants over the last 6 or 7 games he was here. We definitely saw the impact. Dexter Lawrence should take an even bigger step forward. Dalvin Tomlinson, I think we all like. We bring in the guy from the Titans. The Giants have a strong defensive line. McIntosh as well. So with that all being said, I do think the New York Giants have a strong D-line. I think this is the biggest strength on their defense overall, at least going into next season. Of course, the secondary is young, underdeveloped, but has potential. But I will give them a grade of a B on the defensive line. I think it will be right around the top 10 in the league. I do like their defensive line a lot, actually. Next up, that's going to bring us to what I think is probably the team's biggest weakness, and that is the outside linebacker position. That is the edge rusher. The Giants really have a lot of unproven players at this position. They bring in Fackrell at 10 sacks. We'll have to wait and see if Marcus Golden comes back. A lot of people think Marcus Golden was scheme dependent last year. We'll have to wait and see. You have Lorenzo Carter and O'Shane Ximenez. A lot of people think Ximenez will take a big step forward this year, but the guy at this point still only has 4.5 career sacks. This is definitely our biggest weakness, at least in my opinion, on the defensive side of the football, and I think it's reasonable to worry about how the New York Giants are going to get pressure on the opposing quarterback. The way they're going to have to do it is with that what we hope is a strong secondary. I do not think we have an elite pass rusher. I think that is the biggest weakness of this football team on either side of the ball at this point in time. So I will give it a grade of a D. I think that's our biggest need going into the 2021 offseason, regardless of how these players perform this year. Next up, we've got the inside linebacker, and the New York Giants definitely spent some free agency money at that position. They bring in Blake Martinez, who had a lot of tackles last year. I think he had 144. Known as a smart player who struggles somewhat in coverage, but had a good relationship with Patrick Graham when Graham was the linebackers coach with the Green Bay Packers. In addition to that, we re-signed David Mayo. I view him as a depth guy. We hope that Ryan Conley will be healthy. And we'll have to wait and see. I think Peppers will play a little bit at that position as well. They're going to move him around. And this is kind of a positionless defense. But overall, and this is a position that the New York Giants really haven't had a consistent man in the middle for quite some time. Overall, I will actually give the New York Giants a league average grade here. I think Martinez gets more hate than he deserves. I think he's at least an average middle linebacker, and that's a huge improvement for the New York Giants if he performs to league average. We have not had that in forever. So with that all being said, I think the Giants have an adequate middle linebacker core for this football team for the first time in forever. It's definitely not a strength, but I don't think it's a weakness either. Next up, we got the cornerback position, and the Giants made a lot of changes in that area. They go out, they sign James Bradbury, who was their biggest free agent acquisition. We have to wait and see with DeAndre Baker, how he performs with the New York Giants if he is deemed innocent and not guilty and the Giants decide to bring him back. He's a guy I think could take a big step forward in year 2 of his career under Patrick Graham, but that remains to be seen. He definitely struggled last year. Behind him, you've got guys like Julian Love, who could play both the slot, the outside, the safety position. Sam Beal, who's often injured, but has some potential. They definitely have some pieces at that cornerback position. Now, if Baker were to be cut or, asked to, leave the New York Giants or go to prison, the New York Giants cornerback would look much different. They'd probably have to sign somebody in free agency. They'd probably have to move on, and you'd be asking some of these depth players to take a starter role. And I don't even think DeAndre Baker is guaranteed that starting position, even if he is ruled not guilty. But regardless, right now, if I'm assuming DeAndre Baker would be back, I would give this unit a C. If he's not back, probably more of a C- or maybe even a D+. But I will give them a C at this point in time. I think they have decent depth at the cornerback position, and I do think DeAndre Baker, if he does get the opportunity to play, could be an adequate number 2 corner for the New York Giants this year. And I think Bradbury's a solid number 1. And then finally, we're going to go over the safety position. And this is a position that a lot of New York Giants fans are very excited about this year. Obviously, you got Peppers coming back. Like I said, I think they're going to move Peppers around. I think he'll play all over the field. McKinney, a guy I'm really excited about, the second overall selection. So the Giants definitely have 2 potentially very strong safeties in this defense. The guys that can move around, still a little unproven, but I do think McKinney will play well for the New York Giants this year. A fair grade for some may be C, due to the fact that there are still some question marks here. I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm actually going to give them a B at the safety position. But overall, those are the grades I have. Maybe a plus or a minus here or there. But I think that we are at least around league average in a lot of areas. Where our biggest need is definitely the edge rusher position. The quarterback, you could definitely argue maybe a C- or a D+, because he's still, only got 12 starts in the league. But I was a little optimistic at some of these rankings. But overall, I think these are pretty fair in the way that I rank the New York Giants per position. So that's the way I see it. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.